Earlier this week, and I made a point that I think is really relevant to the discussion that we are having today as we are now looking straight into these proposals coming from the administration that would end up totaling $6 trillion in new spending. Now, that's not the annual appropriations, that is new spending. And the point that I had made was that we have to go back pre-COVID and remember what was going on in this economy. Everything was thriving, really thriving, and people kept talking about how great the economy was. In Tennessee, I had so many people that would say, you know, I have more money at the end of the month. And before, during the Obama years, I had too much month left at the end of my money. You know what? They liked having some money left over at the end of the month. And that economy that we had pre-COVID, that came about because of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, that came about because of the work of President Trump and Republican-led House and Senate, and indeed support from some of our Democratic friends. This gave us, our country, the most robust economy we had seen in decades, and unemployment had hit 3.5%, historic lows. Wage gains were at a record high. Pro-growth policies like that Tax Cuts and Jobs Act had set a new standard. We proved we don't have to tax and spend ourselves into oblivion to make a difference in the lives of struggling families. It's a legacy that my Democratic colleagues wish the American people would forget, because that memory is getting in the way of their work on behalf of big spending, big government, big programs that take big bucks right out of the American taxpayer's pocket. And the Democratic agenda is not cheap. It is going to take a lot of taxpayer dollars. So, how does President Biden intend to pay for this? It's called a $2 trillion tax hike that targets all of the usual supposed villains, but that in reality would harm the very people that my colleagues across the aisle insist that they are trying to help. Let's look at the proposed corporate tax hike. Corporations are the left's favorite villain, and they would certainly suffer under this scheme, but it's not the CEOs and the high earners that would feel the pain. As it stands, the proposal would impose a combined corporate tax rate higher than any other developed nation. Higher. Puts us at the top of the heap in tax rates. The only way American corporations would maintain their competitiveness is if other countries set aside their advantage, which of course we know would never happen. Not only will the Amazons and the Apples bear the brunt of this decline, so will nearly 1 million small businesses. We call them mom and pops, and they're organized as C Corps. Workers won't escape the fallout either. When the cost of doing business goes up, growth and investment stagnate, wages fall, and the people driving the economy suffer. That is right. This is going to hit Main Street in local communities where you're going to see small businesses that cannot afford to keep up with inflation, that cannot afford these high taxes, cannot afford increased regulation. It is your friends and neighbors who have these small businesses. They are the ones who are going to suffer. And why will they suffer? Because the Democratic majority never ceases to have an outsized appetite for the taxpayer's dollar. Even conservative estimates from the nonpartisan Joint Committee on Taxation show that workers will bear a quarter of that new cost of doing business. The worker, the laborer, they're going to have this on their shoulders. Think about it. Think of what you're doing to families. The view doesn't look any better from the owner's side. Anyone taking advantage of an IRA or a pension plan will see a bigger tax bill too. Watching this White House make fiscal policy is like watching reruns of the Obama administration. The formula is the same. Pitch a big idea, sound compassionate, make a big promise. You're going to help all these people. And then send the bill to hard-working taxpayers. They do it every time. Increasing taxes is bad enough, but now they're demanding a bigger payout from struggling families and small businesses on Main Street in your community, and they're doing this in the middle of a pandemic recovery. They locked you down, and now they're going to push you down. They're going to shut the doors of your small business, your version of the American dream. Do they give a rip and flip? Probably not. It's all about getting the money to pay for what they want to do. It's a power grab. I would encourage my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to stop the madness, because we know this will cause irreparable harm to our nation's already fragile recovery. I yield the floor.
The senator